Story 1. The Patient in Room 12. Renee had been a night shift nurse for 9 years. She had worked in 3 hospitals across 2 states. She had seen most of what hospitals showed you at night. The particular silence of a ward at 2 a.m., the specific quality of a shift going wrong before anything had happened yet. She had learned all of it. She thought she had. She was working the night shift at a regional hospital in rural Tennessee when the incident with Room 12 happened. It was a Tuesday in February, 2:19 a.m. The ward was quiet, 8 patients, all sleeping. Or supposed to be. The nurse's station at night had a quality she had come to know well. The low hum of monitors down the hall, the fluorescent light above the desk that buzzed slightly, always the same slightly too high pitch. The logbook, the charts, the coffee that had been sitting for 2 hours. She was doing her charting when the call light above Room 12 came on. She noted the time. She finished the sentence she was writing. She pushed back her chair and walked down the hall. The hall was long and dim at night. 8 rooms, all closed. Room 12 at the far end. The patient in Room 12 was a 71-year-old man named Harold. He had been admitted 3 days earlier for a minor cardiac event. Stable, comfortable, due to be discharged Thursday morning. He was 71 years old and had been married for 44 of them, and his wife was driving up from Knoxville in the morning. He was pleasant and grateful and the kind of patient who apologized for using his call light even when using it was entirely appropriate. Renee opened the door. The room was dark except for the blue glow of the monitors. That particular blue that she had looked at thousands of times. Steady lines, normal readings. Harold was sitting up in bed. The monitor behind him reflected softly in the darkened window glass, looking directly at her. He was not panicked. He was not confused. He was sitting up straight with his hands flat on the blanket and looking at the door as though he had been waiting for it to open. "Everything okay, Harold?" she said. "There was someone in here," he said, quietly, certain. Renee stepped inside and looked around the room. It was a private room, single occupancy, small bathroom attached. 1 chair in the corner, empty. "I don't see anyone," she said. "She was standing at the foot of my bed," Harold said. "What did she look like?" Renee said. Harold thought about it. "Small," he said. "Older, gray hair. She was wearing a hospital gown." Renee checked the bathroom. Empty. She checked the closet. Empty. She stepped back into the room. "There's nobody here," she said. "You may have been dreaming." Harold looked at the foot of the bed, then back at Renee. "She touched my foot through the blanket," he said. Renee spent a few more minutes with him, got him settled, checked his vitals. Normal. She left the room and made a note in the chart. Patient reported seeing a woman in the room. No evidence of anyone present. Possible confusion on waking. She went back to her charting. At 3:47 a.m., the call light above Room 12 came on again. Renee put down her coffee. She walked down the hall. Harold was sitting up, same position as before, hands flat on the blanket, eyes on the door, waiting for her. "She came back," he said. "Harold." "She was standing at the foot of the bed again," he said. "Same woman?" "Same woman. Did she say anything?" Harold shook his head. "She just stood there." A pause. "Looking at me." Renee sat on the edge of his bed. She asked him questions carefully, checking his orientation, the date, his name, where he was. All correct. His mental state was not the concern. But she ran his cardiac check anyway. Normal. She stayed with him until he settled. She adjusted his pillow. She told him to press the button immediately if he was worried about anything. He said he would. He said, "She's not frightening. I want you to know that. She just looks sad." Renee looked at him. "Sad," she said. Harold nodded. "Like she's been waiting for a long time." Renee went back to the nurse's station. At 4:52 a.m., the call light above Room 12 came on a 3rd time. Renee walked down the hall. She opened the door to Room 12. Harold was not sitting up this time. He was lying flat, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. She crossed to the bed immediately. His breathing was normal. His color was normal. "Harold," she said. He turned his head slowly. "She was here again," he said. "Did she touch you again?" Harold shook his head. "No," he said. "This time she was crying." Renee stayed with him for 20 minutes. She sat in the chair in the corner of the room. She watched him. She watched the room. She did not see anything. She heard nothing. She asked Harold to try to sleep. He nodded. He closed his eyes. Renee stood up to leave. She was at the door when Harold spoke again, quietly. "She was here before," he said. "What do you mean?" Renee said. "She was here before I came in," he said. "She told me this was her room." Renee stood at the door. "She said she died here," Harold said. "In this room. In this bed." He said it calmly, without fear. The way someone repeats information they were given. "She said she's been waiting for a long time," he said. "For someone who could see her." Renee went back to the nurse's station. She sat down. She looked at the call light board. Room 12 was dark. She sat there for a moment. Then she did something she had not done in 9 years of night shifts. She searched the hospital's archived records, not for a patient, for the room itself. She pulled up the room's history on the hospital database. The older records had been digitized from paper files in the early 2000s, and the quality was inconsistent. It took her a while to find what she was looking for, but she found it. Room 12 had originally been a room in the hospital's previous wing, built in the 1940s. The room numbers had been retained when the wing was renovated. She searched the records for deaths in room 12. There had been several over the decades. One in particular caught her attention. A woman, admitted 1987, died in room 12. Age 68, cause of death, cardiac arrest, no next of kin listed. Her name was Margaret. Renee stopped scrolling. She sat with that for a moment. Then she scrolled down. There was a photograph attached to the record. Black and white. Hospital admission photo. A woman, small, older. Gray hair. Renee stared at the screen for a long time. Then she printed the record. She folded it. She put it in her pocket. She walked back to room 12. The hall was quiet. She opened the door as quietly as she could. Harold was asleep. His breathing was slow and even. She stood beside his bed and held the printed photograph in the light from the monitors. It was a black and white image, small, the quality of old institutional photographs. She looked at it for a long time. Then she set it on the table beside his bed, on top of the water jug where he would see it when he woke. She did not say anything. She walked back to her station. She sat down. She did not pick up her charting. She sat and looked at the call light board. Room 12 was dark. It stayed dark until morning. When Harold woke at 6, his breakfast tray had been brought in. Renee came in to check on him. He was sitting up, eating. The photograph was in his hand. He looked up when she came in. He looked at the photograph for several seconds, then at Renee. That's her. Simply, without drama, like confirming something he had already known. Harold was discharged on Thursday as planned. He was fine. He died 18 months later of an unrelated cause. Renee still works at that hospital. She's never put another patient in room 12. She noted in Harold's chart that the room should be used for storage only. No one has questioned it. No administrator has pushed back. She told me the room has been empty for 4 years. She said the call light still comes on sometimes, at night, when no one is in there. She said she stopped noting it in the log after the first year. She just gets up, walks down the hall, the same hall she has walked thousands of times. She opens the door to room 12. She stands in the doorway. She does not turn on the light. She says into the dark, "I see you, Margaret." Then she goes back to her station. She sits down. The light goes off every time. Without exception, she has never had to say it twice. Story 2. The security guard who never came back. This story was told to me by a man named Conrad. Conrad worked as a security guard at a large commercial warehouse on the outskirts of a city in the American Midwest. The warehouse had been built in the 1970s, 400,000 square feet of storage space, 20-foot ceilings. steel shelving that ran in rows 200 feet long. The building had changed ownership several times. Each new owner had left the bones the same and changed only the inventory. Conrad had been working night shifts there for 14 months before the night this happened. He knew the building the way. You know a building when you have spent hundreds of hours alone in it at night. Every creak, every draft from the gaps in the loading dock doors that never fully sealed. Every shadow that shifted when the exterior lights flickered on their timers. The areas near the far wall that smelled differently in cold weather. The way the building settled after midnight in a particular sequence, like something working its way through the structure from one end to the other. He knew all of it. He thought he did. It was a Wednesday night in October. His shift started at 10 p.m. The warehouse was empty of workers, just Conrad and the building. His job was perimeter checks every 2 hours, monitor the camera feeds from the security booth, log anything unusual, walk the floor between scheduled checks. He had done this hundreds of times. The rhythm of it was automatic. The first hours passed normally. 10 p.m. check, clear. Midnight check, clear. He drank his coffee. He watched the cameras. He read, nothing. At 2 a.m., he started his perimeter walk. Section A, Section B. Halfway through Section C, the rear of the building, furthest from the entrance, he heard something. A sound from the level above. The mezzanine level. Storage only. No one authorized to be up there during off hours. Conrad stopped walking. He stood at the base of the mezzanine stairs and listened. The sound came again. Footsteps, slow, moving across the mezzanine floor above him. He called out. "Security," announced himself. The footsteps stopped. He waited. Nothing. Conrad was not a reckless person. He did not go up the mezzanine stairs alone. Protocol said to call for backup if there was an indication of unauthorized access. He called his supervisor. The supervisor said he would send a second guard. 20 minutes. Conrad waited at the base of the mezzanine stairs. He kept his flashlight pointed up. For 20 minutes he heard nothing from above. The second guard, a man named Phil, arrived at 2:31 a.m. They went up the stairs together. Mezzanine level, storage, rows of shelving units, old inventory, empty pallets, nothing visibly disturbed. They walked the full length of the mezzanine, nothing. Phil said it was probably rats, or the building settling. He went back down. Conrad did one more sweep of the mezzanine alone, walking slowly, checking between the shelving units. He was 3 rows in when he found it. The warehouse felt much larger than it had an hour earlier. A chair. In the middle of the aisle between 2 rows of shelving, a plain folding chair, facing the aisle entrance. Conrad stood in the aisle between the shelving units and looked at the chair. He had been in this building for 14 months. He had walked this mezzanine at least 60 times. He had walked this specific aisle dozens of times. He had never seen this chair before. He looked at the floor around it. No drag marks in the dust leading to it. No footprints around it. Nothing in the settled grit to explain how it had arrived where it was. He stepped closer, then stopped. He suddenly did not want to walk any further toward it. He stood there for a moment and registered that feeling. Then he made himself take another step. The chair was a plain metal folding chair, the kind found in offices and break rooms everywhere, placed deliberately in the center of the aisle, facing directly toward the aisle entrance. But the mezzanine was covered in a fine layer of dust and grit that settled on everything over time. The boxes on the shelves, the floor, the empty pallets, everything up here had that layer. The chair did not. It was clean. Cleaner than anything else on the mezzanine. Sitting in the middle of the aisle as though it had been placed there minutes ago. Facing the aisle entrance. Facing the stairs Conrad had come up. He stood there looking at it for longer than he wanted to admit. Then he photographed it with his phone. 4 photographs from different angles. He noted it in the log. Folding chair found in mezzanine row C. Clean. No dust. Origin unknown. He left it where it was. He went back down. He was aware of his own footsteps on the way down the stairs. How loud they were. How the building swallowed them. At 4:13 a.m. he heard it again. He was at the security booth. He heard it clearly. The same sound as before. Footsteps on the mezzanine level. Slow. Moving. He sat with it for a moment before he did anything. Just sat there and listened to the footsteps moving above him through 400,000 square feet of empty building. Then he called Phil. Phil was not happy about it. But he came. They went up again. The chair was gone. Phil looked at Conrad. "You sure it was there?" Phil said. Conrad showed him the photograph. Phil was quiet for a moment. Then he said they needed to call the site manager. The site manager arrived at 5:30 a.m. He did a walk of the mezzanine. He found nothing. He said the chair must have been an old piece of equipment left up there by a worker. Conrad pulled up the camera feeds for the mezzanine. 2 cameras covered the space, camera 7 at the north end, camera 8 at the south. Between them, they covered every row. He rewound to 2 a.m. He watched the footage forward. The cameras covered both ends of the mezzanine, including the stairwell access. No one went up the stairs at any point between 2 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. No footage of anyone on the mezzanine level at any point. No footage of the chair. Row C was fully visible on camera 8, the aisle where Conrad had found the chair. The chair should have been clearly visible in the frame. At 2:31 a.m., when Conrad and Phil had walked that aisle together and found nothing, the footage confirmed it. Empty aisle. No chair. At 2:48 a.m., when Conrad had walked it alone and found the chair, he had photographed it. The timestamp on his photograph was 2:48 a.m. He checked the timestamp 3 times. Camera 8 at 2:48 a.m. showed an empty aisle. At 4:13 a.m., when they had gone back up and found the chair gone, Camera 8 confirmed that too. Empty aisle. No chair, no person, no movement, at any point. Conrad handed in his notice that week. He works in a different industry now. He told me he has not worked a night shift since. But the part that ended his career in security was not the footsteps. It was not the chair appearing and disappearing. It was the camera footage. He told me he has thought about what the footage means. If the cameras were working correctly, if there was no malfunction, then whatever placed that chair on the mezzanine was not visible on camera. He paused when he said that. Then he said, he paused for several seconds. It wasn't a person. He said it quietly, like a conclusion he had been working toward for 14 months. Not dramatically, just the only thing left when you have run out of everything else. Story 3. What she saw on the monitor. This is the last story, and I want you to understand before I tell it that the woman who told me this story is one of the most grounded people I have spoken to. Her name is Yvette. She worked the overnight shift at a 24-hour petrol station in rural Scotland for almost 3 years, alone. The station sat on a stretch of dual carriageway 20 miles from the nearest town. No other buildings visible from it in either direction, just the road, the forecourt lights, the dark on all sides. Trucks mostly, the occasional car at strange hours, long stretches of nothing between vehicles, 20 minutes sometimes, 30, where the road was completely empty and the only sounds were the refrigeration units behind her and the hum of the forecourt lights. She had the overnight shift 5 nights a week. She knew the rhythms of the road at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. She knew which sounds the building made and when. She knew which camera had a slight smear on the lens from a cleaning accident and which one caught the glare from a streetlight at certain angles. She knew everything about that station after 3 years. She thought she did. It was a Thursday night in November, 3:07 a.m. precisely. The road outside had been empty for 20 minutes. The last customer had been at 2:47 a.m., a truck driver she recognized by his jacket. He had bought coffee and a sandwich and said nothing beyond thank you. The shop felt very quiet after he left. That particular quiet of a building that has had a person in it and now does not. Yvette was restocking the refrigerated section at the back of the shop, pulling cartons from the storeroom, checking dates, stacking them into the chilled unit. When she heard the door sensor, the small electronic tone it made when the door opened. Someone had come in. She straightened up. She looked toward the front of the shop. The shop was long and narrow. She could see the full length of it from where she stood. Nobody there. She walked to the front, looked both directions along the shop floor. All the way to the end of each aisle, empty. She pushed open the door and stepped outside. The forecourt was empty. No cars at the pumps. No one by the air machine. The road in both directions was empty as far as the forecourt lights reached. She stood outside for a moment, cold, quiet. Then she went back inside. She stood behind the counter. The shop was silent. Then she looked at the security monitor behind the till. The monitor showed a split feed, 4 cameras. Forecourt, shop interior, car park at the rear, and the road approach. She was looking at camera 3, the rear car park, when something caught her attention. A figure, standing in the far corner of the car park, under the light, completely motionless, facing the building, as if it had been standing there long before she noticed it. She felt her stomach tighten. Yvette looked from the monitor to the window that looked out onto the rear car park. She could see the corner of the car park through the window. It was empty. She looked back at the monitor. The figure was still there, on camera 3, standing under the light, facing the building. She watched it for 30 seconds. It did not move. She picked up her phone. No signal. She walked to the landline behind the counter. She dialed the number for her area supervisor. It rang 8 times. No answer. She put the phone down. She looked at the monitor. The figure was still there. Same position, same stillness. She watched it for another full minute. Then she did something she told me she still is not sure was brave or stupid. She watched the figure on the monitor for another 30 seconds. It did not move. Then she walked to the rear door. She stood with her hand on the lock for a moment. She already knew the corner would be empty. She just didn't know why she knew that. She unlocked it. She opened it and looked out into the car park. The corner was empty. The light above it was on, illuminating nothing. She stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then she stepped back inside and locked the door. She walked to the monitor. The figure was gone from camera 3. She stood at the counter and watched all 4 feeds for the next 30 minutes. Nothing on any of them. At 4:18 a.m. a truck came in. The driver was a regular. She knew his face. He bought fuel and a sandwich and leaned on the counter for a moment. "Quiet night?" he said. "Yes," she said. She did not tell him about the figure. She did not tell anyone that night. She went home at 6 a.m. when her replacement arrived. She slept badly. When she woke up, she sat at her kitchen table and thought carefully about what she had seen. She was a practical person. She ran through the explanations. A person standing in her car park at 3 a.m. who then left when she opened the door. Possible. A fault with camera 3. Possible. She was calm enough about both of those explanations that she almost let it go. Almost. But she went back to the station that afternoon. She asked her manager if she could look at the security footage from the previous night. He said yes. They pulled it up together. Camera 3, 3 a.m. to 3:30 a.m. The car park was empty for the entire period. No figure, no person, no movement at all. Yvette watched the footage 3 times. The manager watched it twice. "What are you looking for?" he said. "Nothing," she said. "Never mind." She went home. She sat with it for a week. Then she put in a request for the morning shift. Her manager asked why. She said she preferred the hours. She worked mornings for the remaining 18 months of her time at that station. She told me she never worked a night shift anywhere again. But here's the part she told me last, after everything else, quieter than the rest. She said there was one thing she had not told her manager, one thing she had not told anyone until she told me. She said she had not just watched the footage of the car park. She had also checked the footage of the shop interior, camera 2, mounted above the door, pointing back into the shop. It covered the entrance, the full counter area, and most of the shop floor. She had scrolled it back to 3:07 a.m. precisely, the moment the door sensor triggered, when she had heard someone come in, when she had put down the cartons, walked to the front, and found nobody there. She watched the footage frame by frame. The door did not open. She watched it again. 3:07 a.m. The sensor activated, the small indicator light on the sensor unit. The one that only activated when the door opened. It activated. The door did not move, not even slightly, not enough to shift the reflection in the glass. She scrolled back and watched it a third time, 3:07 a.m. Sensor light, door closed. Nothing coming in. Nothing visible on the footage at any point between 2:47 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. Just the empty shop, the counter, the aisles, the fluorescent lights, and the sensor light activating at 3:07 a.m. like something that did not need to open a door had come in anyway. She still thinks about that night. Not the figure in the car park that she could explain away, just about, but the door that triggered the sensor, without opening. She told me she does not know what walked into that shop at 3:07 a.m. She does not know what set off the sensor. She does not know what came through a door that did not open. She does not know what she would have seen if she had been standing at the counter instead of at the back of the shop at the moment it came in. She said she thinks about that last part the most. She was 12 feet from the counter when the sensor triggered, 12 feet and facing the other direction. If she had been at the till, if she had been looking toward the door, she would have seen the sensor light activate. She would have looked up, and whatever came through that door without opening it would have been right there. Looking back, she said she thinks about that every day, on the inside, already in. 3 night shifts, 3 people who clocked in, did their jobs, and found something in the dark that the dark was not supposed to contain. None of them went looking for it. It found them. Renee still walks to room 12 when the call light comes on. Conrad does not work night shifts anymore. Yvette checks the monitor twice. Subscribe for more late night stories. A new one every week. And if you are working a night shift tonight, try not to think about what might already be inside, waiting for you to notice it. Good night.